site are located on the site computer system. You can access these by requesting them from your Chemtrade site contact. If contractors bring any chemicals onto our property, a safety data sheet for that chemical must be provided to the Chemtrade site contact and must be approved for use by the site environmental health and safety representative. This must be done prior to the start of any work activity. The Leeds plant uses liquid sulfur dioxide as raw materials. This liquid is stored and handled in pressurized containers. If it is released to the environment, it typically evaporates rapidly to vapor. Inhalation of the vapor should be avoided. Overexposure may result in permanent lung injury or death. Sodium hydrosulfide solution causes slight eye and skin irritation with direct contact and may cause persons sensitive to sulfites to experience a skin rash. Detailed safety information on these and other raw materials and products may be found in the safety data sheets available on the Chemtrade Logistics website, www.chemtradelogistics.com. In case of emergency, the Leeds plant has been in operation since 1973 and has consistently demonstrated safe chemical handling practices. In the unlikely event that a spill or release within the facility might impact our neighbors, the neighbors will be notified by telephone by the Community Alert Network (CAN) system. The message will contain information on the emergency and the proper precautions to take to ensure safety. Review the wind direction to determine best place to evacuate to. Local authorities will also be notified and will assist the Leeds facility in minimizing the off-site impact and will work with the local community in ensuring everyone's safety. In some cases, shelter in place may be recommended by emergency personnel. If these instructions are given, persons in the impacted area should go quickly inside the nearest building, close all windows and doors, turn off air conditioning and heating systems, turn off fans and clothes dryers. Close off fireplaces. Completely put out any fires. Move to a room with few windows, but not in the basement. Chemtrade takes a proactive stance regarding environmental protection. The Leeds plant process has been designed to generate very little waste. All raw materials are consumed in the manufacturing process. The Leeds plant also has active recycling programs for used oil, paper and cardboard, scrap metal, fluorescent bulbs, batteries, and printer cartridges. All waste transporters and waste disposal sites meet Chemtrade standards and audit requirements to ensure safe and proper disposal. This is a chemical manufacturing facility. While safety devices and precautions are in place to protect you and the plant personnel from harm, a chemical release or other hazardous situation can occur at any time. You should identify and locate all emergency relief vents, discharge points, moving rotating equipment, flanges, pipes, and other potential hazards within your work area. You should also note the location of the nearest fire extinguisher and first aid station. If you have any questions regarding any piece of equipment, operation, or emergency situation which could occur, ask your site contact. It is also important that you never operate any switch, valve, or other piece of equipment without express consent of your Chemtrade contact and after completing all necessary pre-startup safety review items. Safety showers and eye wash stations are located throughout the plant in areas of greatest risk. It is important that you note the location of the nearest safety shower before beginning your work. Test the shower to make sure it is operable before performing any work. If a safety shower is not located in an area where you expect to encounter corrosive or caustic materials, a temporary shower or other first aid provisions will be made available before you begin work. If you come into contact with any acid or caustic material, you must proceed to the nearest safety shower. Flush the affected area for at least 20 minutes and seek medical attention. You should practice good housekeeping at all times. You are responsible for your work area. The job is not complete until it is returned to the condition in which you initially found it. Failing to follow good housekeeping practices may disqualify your company from future work. A safe work permit is a detailed hazard assessment of any task being completed on our site. Contractors working at this site on a particular task are required to obtain a safe work permit to perform work at this location. A safe work permit is only valid on the day that it is issued and must be authorized by a Chemtrade site representative before it is considered valid. It is important that you fully review and understand the work permit before beginning the work. This permit is used to identify the specific hazards with your job and ways for you to avoid risks such as injury or chemical release. Contractors are required to close out and sign the safe work permit before leaving the site. Personal protective equipment. In addition to the minimum PPE requirements for entering the site, additional PPE may be required when your safe work permit is issued. The PPE requirements for working where there is a risk of exposure to sulfuric acid or other corrosive materials includes a hard hat, chemical safety goggles, steel-toe chemical-resistant boots, chemical protective clothing, chemical-resistant gloves, and a face shield. Site policy is hearing protection is required when noise levels exceed 85 decibels. A good rule of thumb is to wear hearing protection if you need to raise your voice to speak to someone standing within 2 feet of you. Hearing protection is required if working in a posted high-noise area or when operating noisy equipment. Where a worker is expected to be exposed to respiratory hazards, the worker must wear suitable respiratory protective equipment for the job task and must be trained, fit tested, and medically qualified for using the respirator. All persons using a tight-fitting respirator facepiece shall be clean-shaven. Your Chemtrade site contact may request documentation to verify compliance with this policy at any time prior to allowing a person to work in a hazardous atmosphere at our site. Hot work permit. All hot work requires a permit, which must be authorized and issued by a Chemtrade employee. Hot work is any activity within the plant property which could produce a spark or ignition or cause a fire or explosion. Before work begins, all combustible materials must be removed. The atmosphere will be monitored to assure that the oxygen concentration of the air is safe for the work and that no flammable gases or harmful vapors exist. If a fire watch is required, the fire watch must be designated on the site hot work permit. The fire watch must be equipped with at least a 10-pound ABC fire extinguisher or 20-pound ABC fire extinguisher if working near combustible materials. Fire watch must be trained on use of the fire extinguisher, continuous air monitoring equipment, and must remain in the work area for at least 30 minutes following the completion of the hot work. At the completion of all hot work, the area operator must be contacted to perform a final inspection of the work area. It is important to use a face shield and protective lenses during any work involving welding or grinding. All portable grinding wheels and other portable work tools must be equipped with the appropriate guards to minimize the risks to a worker in the event that the grinding disc shatters or the tool kicks back. Confined spaces. If your work requires you to enter any tank, vessel, pit, or other space not designated for continuous occupancy, you will be required to follow Chemtrade's confined space entry procedures. Entrance attendants and entry supervision shall have the required training. Written documentation of the necessary training shall be available upon request. A confined space entry permit may only be issued after it is determined that the entry conditions are acceptable and that the appropriate rescue procedures are in place in case of an emergency. Prior to entering any confined space, a pre-entry briefing must be conducted, and it is mandatory that your Chemtrade site contact be included in the briefing. All confined space entries will be conducted in accordance with all applicable legal requirements for the site, such as OSHA or provincial regulations. Without having a properly executed Chemtrade confined space entry permit and pre-entry briefing, you may not enter into any confined spaces. A debriefing shall be held with contractors at the completion of the entry to review entry practices. This shall be documented on the entry confined space permit. Continuous monitoring of conditions within the space is required. Monitoring equipment shall be calibrated and bump check conducted prior to each use. Mechanical retrieval lines connected to a full body harness shall be utilized whenever feasible. Vertical entries 5 feet in depth shall also require a self-retracting lifeline or other fall protection system. Anchor point for lifeline shall hold 5,000 pounds static load per person. Suitable rescue equipment such as extra body harness, SCBA, lifelines, etc., shall be readily available at the site of the entry. The required rescue equipment shall be appropriately documented on the entry permit. Standard entry requires continuous monitoring of oxygen, LEL, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen sulfide. Certain spaces may require additional monitoring. Required monitoring and acceptable entry levels will be specified on the entry permit. To determine required monitoring, consult your site contact.